Being a dad with the dream to be of entrepreneurship, you're presented with a world of possibilities along with a world of challenges. Join Joel Lewis as he interviews successful entrepreneur dads sharing how they made it work from the start. This is Startup Dad HQ.
Hey, welcome to Startup Dad Headquarters, where we're exploring the intersection between fatherhood, entrepreneurship, and life. And today's Startup Dad, I have a very special guest. In episode, what was it, episode 5 or 6, I said that I would have this guest on. It is Emmanuel Gayot. Gayot. Sorry, I almost messed that up. So Emmanuel is a father of 4, and he is a serial entrepreneur. He didn't tell me this when we first talked, but he's definitely a serial entrepreneur, and we're going to be sharing some of his stories today. Currently, he owns a barbershop and a barbershop academy and a cosmetology school. So, Emmanuel, welcome to Startup Dad Headquarters.
Hey, Joel, how are you this morning?
I'm doing great, man. Like I told you, I just came from work. I think most of the startup dads know that I work a night shift, so I just got home from work. This is my interview that's directly after it, so I'm a little bit frantic right now trying to get this. So thank you for your patience.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you for your patience. I appreciate you.
So I told thank you. I told the guests, the startup dads, a little bit about you. Please take a second, give us a little bit more. Obviously, definitely dive into your serial entrepreneur journey, but let us know a little bit more about you and what you have going on right now.
All right. Well, right now, what I have is a cosmetology school, a barber school. I own a barbershop, working on establishing a mentoring company. I'm actually working on a mentoring program. My whole life has been a motivational type of reach out to young men in the neighborhoods and stuff. So pretty much that's it. You know, barber school was started because of, well, I guess we'll get into that later, but barber school, cosmetology school, and working on a mentorship program.
Awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, I love to hear about that with the mentorship program. So definitely we want to dive into that a little bit more.
Yes,
So
sir.
as you know, Emmanuel, this is Startup Dad Headquarters. So we're all about the family and dads like yourself. And I really want to say thank you right now and for reaching out to me earlier on. As you know, I'm just starting off my Startup Dad journey. And when you heard about the podcast, you reached out to me and we were able to get on the phone and chat. And thank you for coming on to the show today and being part of this part of my journey.
Oh, no, thank you so much, man. You inspired me. The first time I heard of, then I really dove in and took a look at that first podcast. I said, man, this is real. You know, it's an opportunity for a person like myself to share their story and so forth. You know, so I appreciate you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was recently inspired by a quote that goes, "No other success can compensate for failure in the home." And I felt that would be a perfect segue into the first segment of the show, which I like to call Family First. Now, you sent me a wonderful picture of your family. I want to bring that up and let's talk about it a little bit more so that we can make a connection between you and the startup dads out there. So I'll bring that picture up and please let us know what you have going on in this beautiful family picture of yours.
And this picture here is we took that picture last year, Father's Day. We were outside the restaurant, and my wife said, "You know, you don't get enough picture time with your kids. Let's go ahead and take this photo op." And you got my son Matthew, my daughter Taylor, Emma Grace, and Noah Emmanuel just chilling there. And my wife's not in the photo because she was actually taking the picture. So, you know, not a single dad, but
Right. Definitely. So, I haven't said this enough, but for the audience that's listening to the show, all the images and the videos that I share throughout the conversation can be found on the Startup Dad website under the episode number. So this is I'm not sure which episode this is going to be, but when I do record record that show intro, I'll let you know what episode number it's going to be. But startupdadhq.com/, and then the episode number, and you can find the pictures and the video on that on the show notes page. So yeah, so we have so you have 4 kids that right now.
Yep. Yep.
So we have 3, and we feel completely overwhelmed and outnumbered. So how do you balance between, you know, the business? You have a cosmetology school. You also have a barbershop barber school. You're starting this mentor program, and then you have the 4 kids at the various. Can you tell us the ages real quick again?
Well, Matthew is 17. That's
Okay.
Brandon. You know, we always have 2 names for them. So Matthew, he's 17. Taylor is 13. Emma Grace is 4. She just had a birthday on Wednesday, actually, and
Nice.
Noah will be 2 in January. So we have a very our scale is up and down. It's been a crazy couple of years. Yeah.
Yeah, you have college bound, high school, and then elementary school and baby, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. I'll tell you what, couldn't do none of this stuff. Well, I'm really not doing any of it. It's actually my wife. She is no joke.
Right.
She is no joke, and I'll dive into that as the interview goes on, I guess. But yeah, as a startup dad, the biggest risk that I've seen is, you know, limited time with them. You know, it's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. So what does tell me what does fatherhood mean to you?
Oh man, fatherhood means provision. Legacy. Fatherhood means guidance, sacrifice. Fatherhood means settling down. Literally not taking for granted the actuality and the responsibility. You know, these kids don't stay babies forever.
Right.
And, you know, one reason we have Emma Grace is because turn around and look at Matthew and like, man, he's so grown. I missed out. Maybe we should have another one so I don't miss out.
Right.
You know, and so that's literally, I believe, how it ended up happening. You know, we had to sort of kind of replace a child,
Right.
a time, I guess. I guess you miss out on a lot, and you say, well, this time I'll do it better.
Right.
You know, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I want to definitely get into the provision piece of what you your definition there of fatherhood. Let me do a quick connection here because I realized I didn't plug in my power. Sorry. Got it. All right. Awesome. So besides, so you talked about fatherhood. We're gonna dive into a little bit more on that definition, especially the provision piece, because I think the provision piece is definitely one of the provision and legacy, right? I think the legacy is the piece that not forces, but it's that catalyst that takes a lot of us dads to that next level and say that, hey, we want to build something, we want to build a legacy for our children. But the provision piece is the piece that that introduces the fear, right? The fear of I'm not going to be able to provide for my family if I take this risk, right? So I definitely want to get into that a little bit more as we go into the episode.
Okay.
Besides, so this is my icebreaker question. I'm sure you've heard of it before. So besides throwing out the trash, what's one chore you're responsible for?
The one chore I'm responsible for. One chore I'm responsible for. I don't want to lie. My wife is within ear's reach. Throwing out the trash. My oldest son does that.
Right.
I press clothes every so often. My mother was real strict with that, pressing clothes. On Sundays, I like to try and gather the kids and let my wife hang out on her own. I try to. I'm not going to say it happens that way every time. Besides provision, paying all the bills, the chores, cutting the grass, definitely.
Yeah.
Trimming and all that stuff. I try my best to be there. I push a lot of that off on my 17-year-old. It really does take a family to sacrifice together as you're trying to start up a business. It really does take the whole family to come in and use all the fingers on the hand, in other words, to make this thing work.
Yeah, tell us a little bit more about that, because you have, like you said, you have a 17-year-old and a 13-year-old. How much are they involved in the business? How much are you trying to teach them what you didn't know? I'm assuming that you didn't know growing up. Yeah.
Well, my 17 and my 13-year-old. My 17-year-old does not want to be a barber. He's made that clear to me. I guess he's heard me not want to be a barber. More so than being a barber, I would like to be a businessman. Barbering, like you've probably heard of this from Rich Dad Poor Dad or Cash Flow Quadrant. Those are self-employed. Your S on that quadrant. They're not really the B, the business owner. And he's watched me for 17 years. I actually opened up my shop a couple days right after he was born. So this is 17 years ago, my very first business. And I've been back and forth with the business for a long time. So he's seen the struggle. So he does not want that struggle. And then my wife also doesn't appreciate this. Not when I say appreciate, but does not want that same struggle for them. So my daughter would come in. She would run the books, run the register at the desk, and so forth and so on. My son would come in every Sunday. We go early, take an hour, clean up the place. Because as a startup dad, you might not have the funds to take care of all those things by paying someone to take care of it. So they're involved, but not truly involved, because such a specialty based business, Yeah.
Okay, definitely. So now that we're starting to talk a little bit about more about the business. Excuse me. This is probably the problem with recording right after working a 12-hour shift.
No, I feel you.
Now that we know a bit more about you and we know more about your family and what you have going on right now, and with this being Startup Dad Headquarters, we have to talk about your start. And your start goes way back. And you like I said, you were a serial entrepreneur, and we want to definitely try to touch on as many of those as possible. So take us back to the start of your entrepreneur journey, which I believe started in Brooklyn, New York.
It sure did. Joe, if you're going to need a minute for this one. This is a whole lot to it. Well, I can go back as far as grade school, selling gum in the classroom for a quarter, something I paid a nickel for, and would just re-up just continuously. Buy blow pops and sell them for a quarter, and it only cost me a dime. Buying a box of blow pops from the supermarket or a bag and selling each one, and then going back and then able to take care of. My mom had 5 kids, so we had to do what we had to do to get our own funds. Entrepreneurship, that's the way it was. I worked my whole life for entrepreneurs. I started out, I remember, for a man who owned he owned a hardware store, and that was my first job. No, actually, my first job was working for the bike shop. That was an entrepreneur. The next job was for a gentleman named the Wieners, Ed Wiener. He owned a drugstore. I worked for a meat market. I worked for the drugstore from grade school to high school. Then I went and worked for a guy named Moses. He owned his first barbershop, taught me everything I know in the beginning about barbering. Then went to college, moved down here to Virginia, met my wife here in college, and meeting her in college, I went to school to become a pharmacist because I worked in the pharmacy, and the guy was grooming me to become a pharmacist. But everybody kept knocking on my door once they found out that I cut hair. So room 106 in Virginia Union was the barbershop.
Right.
I go back home, can't get a job. Well, I have my clippers. So I go into a barbershop. So I cut in here and there. Back then, nobody cared about licenses and so forth.
Right.
Didn't understand about diseases and so forth. And I'm saying that because of what I do now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so started cutting hair, cut hair forever.
Right.
Opened up my first barbershop when my wife was pregnant with my son Matthew.
In Virginia.
Uh,
Virginia.
no, actually, this is back in Brooklyn because I left school, came back to Brooklyn.
Okay.
We moved to Brooklyn and get back to Brooklyn and opened up my first barbershop in 1997. Actually, he was born the 21st of April. The shop was open the 23rd, which was my birthday
Right.
of April.
You were
Yeah.
25, right?
I was 25 when he was born. I was 26 when we opened the shop,
Okay.
which is a couple days later, after he was born, that is.
Mhm.
So after that, that first shop cost me about $15,000 to put together.
Mhm.
Um, I said, money's rolling in. Of course, to a young man, you make a couple $1,000s, you think that's a lot of money.
Right.
So I took some of that money, opened up another shop. So now I have two shops running at the same time.
In Brooklyn.
In Brooklyn, yeah, two shops running at the same time. I had some good friends in the music industry. I don't know if you heard of Ralph McDaniels. His brother and I, Brian McDaniels, are real cool.
Yeah.
My cousin Reno Darvillis is really cool with them, and so we really got together. So a lot of the stars would come by his business, and so I was cutting their hair. So
Okay.
that made the shop pretty important.
Yeah.
But then the time with just one son was so much. I said, okay, well, save up some money through Susu. I don't know if you heard about Susu.
Yeah.
It's a saving plan Caribbean folks use. I saved up, man. Over the time, I learned the value of $1. $1 at a time really goes a long way. So I used those monies to open up a restaurant that didn't last more than maybe about 60 days with
Wow.
a small investment of about $6,000.
Okay.
That taught me that money is not as important as a system.
Mhm.
You can have all the money in the world and lose it, but a system gives you at least a fighting chance. So those are some of the struggles and stuff I come to find out about. So I've owned a restaurant. Then we moved to Virginia, opened up I moved to Virginia actually to go into real estate to put aside barbering because barbering was such a specialty job or business. Moved
Emmanuel,
to Virginia.
before we go into that, let me ask you. So you're 25 years old,
Uh-huh,
26 years old, 1996, right?
uh-huh, uh-huh,
You raised $15,000 and you opened up
uh-huh.
a barbershop in Brooklyn.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Tell me a little bit about that experience. How did you know someone that already owned a barbershop? How did you find a
Mm,
place, a location, and all that kind of stuff?
Well, my wife was pregnant, and she said, "We got to do something better than this. You're working at the barbershop. You need your own. You can do it." And
Mhm.
she's always been my motivation and for starting something up. And that time she told me, "You can do it." Her grandmother um, used to run this program, this savings program called Susu, or
Yeah.
Partner, right? And her grandmother, you would take $100 a week, or $150, 200, whatever it is, and you would give that to her for a week. And there's 54 weeks in the year, or 56, whatever it is, and there's 54 people or whatever amount of people that's in there. Each person has a week. So you would do 100 a month. I think the first time I did $200 a week. So that's
Mhm.
800 a month, and it's what I was saving. And that's how I learned to actually save for businesses.
Right.
I've always wanted a business and never had the cash, never had the means, didn't understand credit, didn't understand loans, didn't understand any of that stuff. But I do know I was bringing in raw cash, and
Mhm.
cash is power. But how do you save this cash and not spend it? You can easily spend 2 G's and with no problem.
Right.
So I learned to save through that program,
Okay.
and I think every year I saved up at least $6,000 cash money.
Okay.
And I would take that cash instead of buying fancy rims and cars or whatever. I would take that and open up another business. So when you say serial entrepreneur, yeah, I did from ice cream carts and put it on the street with different vendors. I've done a restaurant, like I said earlier. I've
Right.
tried tutoring, you know, all sorts of stuff. I had a personal training and everything.
Where would you say that mentality came from for you? Because you said you started, your hustle from even when you were a kid. Did you have parents that were entrepreneurs? Where did that? Because one of the initial challenges is the mental shift to say that I can be an entrepreneur. I don't need to work for one. So where did that mental shift come for you?
What's crazy, Joel, is I just got in contact with some of the Gayots that live in Florida, my father's folks that I never knew. I found them on Facebook, reached out to them. They are all entrepreneurs. I have cousins that own nursing schools. I have cousins that own HVAC, AC and HVAC companies. I found out that my grandfather on my father's side was actually, he owned a dry cleaning business. I found out that my uncle, who's a school teacher, partnered with my other cousin that owns the nursing school and opened up a nursing school location in Palm Springs.
Nice.
So it's like, I think it's in the blood, man. My mother didn't work. She owned her own baby. She would babysit. She sent all of us to private school through babysitting. It was 5 of us, and she used that babysitting money and sent us to private school, bought a home, and everything relied on that. So I've always seen it, and then I've always worked with entrepreneurs.
Okay.
Always small business owners the whole time. So I think that's why I was able to see it in action.
So it's in your DNA, basically.
Yeah, I believe it is. It is in my DNA, and that's all I've experienced as far as work. I think I've been cultivated for that, and my wife again supports me. And if I say, "What do you think?" she's it up to me, and that's the most pressure. The fact that she leaves it up to me, and then I have to do the research, and you don't have time to lose any money anymore as you have a growing family. So yeah.
So did you ever consider working a 9-to-5 corporate job at all?
Actually, Joel, I did. I worked when I left New York to move to Virginia. In New York, I decided all my brothers and sisters are school teachers, right? They own businesses on the side, but they're all school teachers. So I said, let me go ahead and work with the Board of Ed. I ended up getting a job as a paraprofessional in Brooklyn, New York. When I would mention it to the guys that were professionals, they would all say to me, "What is wrong with you? You have the perfect scenario, and you want to go get this job." Well, what I was looking for was a check, something dependable. But I never realized that dependability was already there in barbering. You see what I mean? So a lot of friends were disappointed because the guys with the degrees looked up to me. And I'm looking up to them because I see the suit and tie, but I never realized what I know now, that the suit and tie is my responsibility. If that's how I want to dress for work, if that's the responsibility that I want, I have to apply it. So they're looking up to me and looking to throw away their career, and they see the misery. I'm looking at them thinking, they have freedom with time, which I don't have as an entrepreneur. That's the hardest thing I think is with entrepreneurship, is that freedom with time. So yeah, I moved to Virginia in 2003, and I took a job as a corrections officer. I'm gonna tell you, Joel, I cried the day I put on that uniform. And my wife came up and she rubbed my shoulder and she said, "Emmanuel, you're providing for your family." And after 2 years of working corrections, I went back. I got my barber's license. Opened up a personal training gym, and did both of those to provide for the family. Then a lady walks into the barbershop and she tells me, I was always a mentor also, and she tells me, "Emmanuel," the lady's name is Lynette Daniels, and I'll introduce you to her after, but Lynette Daniels, she says to me, "My son likes you." I said, "What?" She said, "My son likes you. He looks up to you." I said, "Okay, cool. Can you help him?" "Can I help him?" I said, "Yeah. I mean, what do you want?" She said, "Well, he's, he just needs guidance or something along those lines." And this is in 2007. So I go, "All right, yeah, bring him by, teach him how to cut hair." She says, "That's perfect, because what I do is I'm an administrator, and I can open up a barber school for you." And she did
Wow.
all the paperwork, the handbook, everything for me, and opened up that barber school. And we worked together, and a year later, we owned the barber school. That was in 2007
This is in Virginia now.
in Virginia, yeah. I
Okay.
wasn't looking for a barber school, but
Okay.
that's what ended up coming out of it.
So let me try to tie this in, or actually, let me ask you one more question, and then we want to try to tie all this in because you definitely have a wealth of knowledge, and like we talked about, you're a serial entrepreneur. So I'm trying to get a little escape of everything that's going on. But before I do that, how did you start cutting hair? Like you said that it just, when you were in school in Virginia Union, your dorm room became the barbershop. Where did that experience come from? At what point did you start cutting hair or learn to cut hair?
All right, well, cutting hair started, I was about 14 years old.
Okay.
All my buddies bought clippers and started cutting hair, and I just wanted to compete with them. Everybody's doing flat tops and designs and stuff. Well, I could do anything. I was an entrepreneur forever. Plus, you can get $5 per haircut in cutting hair in your basement. $5 times 10, that's $50, man. I'm a rich man at 14. So I just really just picked up. My aunt bought me my first pair of clippers, man. She gave me $20, and I went to the drugstore and picked up some clippers. I didn't even know what type of clippers to purchase or anything. And then, they were going to barbershops and coming back home with tons of money. And I said, man, this is good stuff. Cut hair in the school gym at Bishop Loughlin. I would cut the basketball players in the actual utility room at Bishop Loughlin, and it was the coolest thing. And then Moses gave me my first job as a barber at his barbershop, place called Mo Better Cuts,
Right.
Franklin Avenue in Brooklyn. Yeah.
Okay. The reason why I asked about that is because one of the things I try to impress upon the dads is that you have to look back, right? A lot of times we're looking at, oh, I don't have this, I don't have that. And I think you kind of mentioned it in your story as well. You're thinking that you're going to go to pharmaceutical school or you're going to become a corporate person. And everybody else is like, you already have this skill. Why not create a business around that? Like connecting the dots and looking at, hey, you've lived 30 years, you've lived 35 years. What are all the skills you have already that you could combine those skills together and start yeah, right? And then any gaps that you need to fill in, you fill in along the way. So that's why I wanted to understand, where did that come from? Okay, so now you're cutting hair, you start a barbershop, 2 barbershops in Brooklyn. The restaurant didn't work out. That was about 6
No,
months.
that's 3 barbershops in Brooklyn.
3 barbershops in
Yeah,
Brooklyn.
yeah.
So you almost had a franchise.
Yeah.
You're like
let me tell you about that. I have 3 barbershops, Joel, in Brooklyn, and all I can afford is a new car. That's it. That's it. I remember sitting in the car, going to dinner with my wife. We have a brand new 2001 Jeep Cherokee, and I said, "This is crazy. After we make this car payment, we don't have any money, and I have to keep going back to work." And I said, "There's got to be a better way." This is before understanding that, there's a difference between an employee and a self-employed person. Even though I own all these businesses, I have just a bunch of contractors, and they make all the money. My businesses were packed. The building was packed, not my business, but the building was packed. My business was my chair. You see what I mean? So I would make a few bucks here and there from all these shops that's running at the same time, but nothing more than just able to pay the bills.
Explain to us real quick, how does the barbershop payment works? Because so you say you have contractors. How do they pay you? How do you make money, real quick?
Okay. A barbershop, the way it works, there's different models. Okay, you have the contractor model, which is booth rent. You have commission, which is self-employed, but also contractor. You also, the booth renter is the contractor. Then you have the commission employee. So that person works for you, but sort of kind of doesn't work for you. He's not on the clock. Then you have the hourly worker. Now, just to put it in perspective, most of the neighborhood barbershops that you find in the urban communities, that's booth renters. Those people pay $150 a week for the chair. So that's what, $600 a month for their chair. Then you have those that don't have a clientele. Those folks will come in under commission. So they would cut a head for, let's say, $20, and they would keep 60% and you would get 40%. Those are all bad models in my book. What I've learned now is a new model, is the franchise model. If you can imagine being an investor and decide to go and purchase a barbershop, and you can only get $600 per seat per month, and your rent is $1,000 in a bad neighborhood, and in a good neighborhood is $3,000. You can only imagine how much people you would have to have renting from you. That model, in my view, doesn't work. In my experience of 17 years in the business, it does not work. There's a model that I've learned now is the model where the franchises use. Because you have to understand, doctors, lawyers, judges purchase franchises. These franchises have a system that's amazing. Their system is an hourly wage system. They hire folks, they build a cutting hair system, they build a brand, and they hire barbers or who are fresh out of school or experienced and have realized that booth rental doesn't work for them either. And they bring these guys in and they teach them how to cut hair their way. They dress them up and they brand this business. And this barber is cutting hair. Those businesses, the difference is you're talking about $500,000 income for a business versus $20,000 a year for a business owner and the other model. So those models are so different, and I've never understood how you can put a name like Great Clips on a building and sell that franchise system for $150,000. I can't sell my business for $10,000.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So that's when I started realizing systems. Systems are amazing. It's the most amazing thing. And so now with school, I teach my students about systems. You know, everybody wants to open up a barbershop, but they don't understand what system they're going to use. You know, because you can do it so many different ways. You know, so yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So, explain to in that last model, and I don't want to. I know we're running out of time here. In that last model, you do have to have health insurance, though, right? Don't you have to pay for the health insurance?
Yes, you do have to have health insurance. But the funny thing I've learned about health insurance is the more folks that work for you. You remember you have subcontractors; those are not employees at all. But when you have an actual business, then you have employees. They will qualify for business insurance, and the more people you have in a group, the less the insurance cost. Yeah. So then you would have to reach out to an agent. The agent would set all those things up for you. That's actually one of the pluses, if that's an actual word, for folks who own franchises. They offer that insurance, and so a parent who has children will come and work there rather than go on their own because it costs so much more. So you have to give some, but you get so much more back.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, before we get off or jump off this segment, I want to ask you, how did you decide? You know, I know it's in your DNA, but at some point, you had the 3 barbershops. You ended up closing those and moving to Virginia.
Yeah. What ended up happening? The reason I closed the businesses in Brooklyn is the time. That I just didn't have time with my family. Mm-hmm. So with that said and done, I decided to go ahead and excuse me, Joel. Yeah. With that said and done, I decided to go ahead and move to Virginia and get into real estate. Real estate in Virginia was way less expensive than in New York. You know, and all the Rich Dad Poor Dad books gave you so much hope. All the different startup business books tell you do this, do that. So I said, okay, well, but they never told me I needed to have good credit. They never told me I needed to be able to save more money. And what I had in New York was the ability to make money from cutting hair. I had such a good business and a good saving plan. When I moved to Virginia, didn't have that. I had to take a job, like I told you. You can't save like that when you have a job because it's the same amount of money each and every time. It didn't fluctuate. Only way I can make more money is if I took more time. You know, if I invested more of my time, then I would make more money, and that wouldn't be enough because then I had bills that I had to take care of. If that makes any sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So I went back to barbering. I had a lieutenant that was the worst. I don't cuss, but if I did cuss, you would understand. how bad this guy was. And he pushed me out, Joe. He pushed me out. He was the nastiest person in the world. I think that was the best thing that ever happened to me as an entrepreneur. I did not want to have that type of person in my life. It was time to just end that relationship. Lieutenant Stone, yeah, I called you. I called the name out. That's the best thing happened to me, man.
Emmanuel, real quick, it sounds like the mic is kind of rubbing against your shirt, and it's
Oh,
giving
okay.
Yeah, so just
Okay. Sorry about that.
no problem, definitely. So all right, so we're over the halfway point at this time, and you have such an amazing story, and I really wanted to make sure I got all those questions out because I know that startup dads are probably wondering the same thing, and so thank you for taking the time to explain all that to us. Now we're entering the segment that I call Real Dads, Real Talk. And this is where we kind of go even further and deeper and ask some of the tough questions that, the startup dads need to know and frankly, I need to know. So you talked about, we've talked about some failure a little bit. We touched upon the restaurant that only lasted for 6 months. Can you tell us a little bit more about that failure and what did you learn from it?
Like I said earlier, Joel, I saved money through Susu. And I think this was the second savings, the second year that I did Susu after I opened up the shop, either second or third year. Saved up $6,000. I looked around and I said to my wife, we need to do something else because this barbershop stuff is always packed, but the money's, we're just getting by. And I had a buddy of mine, Dominique, who owned a restaurant. And he had all sorts of stars and stuff that would come by there and do demos or whatever, promotions and stuff. So he was only open for dinner. So I asked him, I said, what would it cost to open up for lunch and breakfast? For breakfast and lunch. And so he told me, he said, we could start with a small investment, about $6,000. That's perfect because I just saved up $6,000. So Joel, my wife and I went to the restaurant. I had $6,000 cash money in my sock. And I pulled it out, didn't sign a contract or anything, and handed this man $6,000, just like that. Counted it out there. He looked at me like, really? But, I mean, take the money, right? So in my mind, if you have money, at that time, if you have money and you have an opportunity, you have a business. But what I've learned along the years is that you need a system. You need a plan, a business plan, a system, or something that's going to actually make this money actually work. Just having a place does not mean you own a business. It means that you have rent now. You have rent and responsibilities that you didn't have prior to spending this money up front. And how are you going to take care of all these other things? So you have this initial jump, but you never check to see how deep this water is, if there are any rocks in the bottom, if the rocks are sharp. How high should you jump? How low? I never had that mindset. I just knew that, in my mind, I can make anything work, but you need a system to make things work. And so I didn't have that system. Those systems or ability to build a system.
You mentioned systems a couple of times. Give us an example of what you mean of a system.
What is a system? Well, you have to know how much staff to have, right? You have to know what your product is going to be. Joel, you have to know exactly what your, you say breakfast and lunch. Who's going to be cooking this breakfast and lunch? How are you going to promote that breakfast and lunch? How are you going to do those things? Without that, you just have a place and you're praying that people come in. So there's no system of marketing. There's no system of promotions at all. There's no system of interior. In other words, you don't have a group of people who's actually going to run this thing. You can't cook, promote, go back and cut hair and come back across the street and do all those things on your own. Yeah, you look like Superman and you feel like Superman in your mind, but you cannot do all those things on your own. I didn't grasp that part. I was just a businessman and didn't have and it's almost sad to say it as I think about it. You have these dreams and you have this ambition and you can do everything, but you have to have that foundation also for every part, and that foundation is your system, something you can fall back on. Great Clips has a wonderful system. It's a book, it's written out, it tells you exactly how they're going to do this cutting hair thing. You don't just, rent booths. And if you do, you need to know how much money you're going to have to make, and if it's even worth it.
Yeah.
You just, I just literally would jump in head first.
Yeah.
Head first without research and statistics and all the stuff I've learned along these 17 years.
Gotcha.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Nice. What's the hardest personal sacrifice you've had to make along your journey?
Time. It's some people might think it's money. It's not money. Money comes and it grows and it goes, and I'll be literal. I'll be serious with you when I say that money is just an idea. If you don't have the right idea with it, it's just something that just blows in the wind. So I've never considered money to be a sacrifice, but my time with my family is the biggest sacrifice. Yeah. Not even for myself, but after you decide to get married and have children, it's really, you gave up yourself already there. But then when you give up yourself, and then you give up yourself for the business also, the truly important things really, you lose that part,
Right.
and you try to get it back as much as possible. But that's really it. It's the time
Yeah.
with the family. Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things that and you and I talked about this over the phone, is, and this is one of the things that I strongly believe in, is that what you've been talking about with the brick and mortar business is that you're exchanging your time for money, right?
Yeah.
Your business is basically, you have to be there, you have to be cutting hair in order for you to generate money, right? Like you said with the barbershop, even though you had 3 barbershops, you physically had to be involved with all of them, or the money wasn't going to come in, or something would fall apart and things like that. You didn't have a system in place where you were making money when you weren't present. Like you didn't have a system in place where you were making money while you were sleeping, right?
Right. That's exactly it. Didn't know you needed that.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't know you needed that. You just, you grow in life. You learn hard work. It pays off.
Right.
That's not business.
Right.
That's not business. That works in life. And if you want good grades, you work real hard. That's
Mm-hmm.
self-motivation, and that's a good thing. But business-wise, you have to set up what Rich Dad Poor Dad calls OPT and OPM. That's business. You have to have other people's time. That way you delegate and things get done properly.
Right.
Those are all great lessons, that I've learned along the line. Just coming up as a entrepreneur and, a startup dad now, really and truthfully, you do definitely need to be able to have help.
Right.
And have organized help. You can't sweep a floor at the barbershop like my son thinks. He'll come and sweep floors. Every time he picks up the broom, that's $5. I'm like, really? You have to sweep every time I cut a head. You're gonna make more money than I do. So systems say, okay, you're gonna work here. You're getting paid $7.50, $8.50 an hour, and your job is not just to sweep floors, it's to do the trash, it's to do the windows, it's to do all that type of stuff. Get lunch and book appointments and answer phones.
Right.
That's what systems organize, and folks go to work for systems all day long.
Right.
But when you don't have a system, they come work for you. They want to do what you do and make what you make.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. There's also another good book. I know you mentioned Rich Dad Poor Dad. It's called The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. I don't know if you read that. But that one talks about basically assistance, delegating some of the tasks to other individuals, so that you're not the one that has to do all work, and you're basically from that business in that time and money, right? Exchanging time for money, right? Because otherwise you run into situations like what you're talking about and what you've experienced in the past, where you have these 3 barbershops, but yet you can only pay for your car, and that's it. And that's
car
not
and necessities. That was it.
Right, car necessity, and that's not the kind of business that you want to build, because ultimately we want to build business that is going to give us the freedom to spend time with our children and go to Disney World and still making money while we're while we're enjoying our time with our family, right?
That's right. That's right. You want to build a business that can provide for others, where they don't become miserable coming to work for you, and it also provides for you. You want
Yeah.
a business where folks feel that they're free
Hmm.
and they're not being taken advantage of. And in order to provide that, you have to have a model, and that model is the same word as system that can prove that, or else you're wasting your time.
Yeah.
You're wasting your time, and then but you're so knee deep in there,
Mhm.
and to quit is another startup.
Yeah.
And so then you run, like you said, you become a serial startup, and you have to do something else. So you jump from one ship to another ship, and eventually, sometime you're gonna have to take that time and actually recognize whether this ship is is gonna capsize with you or
Mhm.
without you, or if you should, you know, reinforce the ship's balance system. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so those are the things I'm looking at now. And I'll be honest with you, my planned for the future is a more systematic barbershop. Like I said, the mentoring company and so forth and so on. Those things are way more planned,
Yeah.
way more. You know, it's
Yeah.
still a risk, but it's more calculated risk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you do for health insurance? Does your wife work as well, or how do you guys handle health insurance with 4 kids? You know that must be a big priority.
I'll be honest with you. I listened to your podcast last night, and I was so happy. And I think it was number 9. I forget the gentleman's name. He
Frank.
said he
Frank.
didn't have any health insurance, and I'm right there with
Frank does.
him. Yeah, Frank, that's right.
Mm.
Yeah, and I'm right there with him. It's a priority. My wife and I definitely have been speaking about it, and as the school grows and the 2 schools grow, then we have more opportunity to go ahead and do that. I've not even mentioned anything about the cosmetology and barber school,
Right.
but if it's okay, if we have enough time, I could just say a few things about that. Um,
Yeah.
the,
Yeah. Go ahead. Well,
the
let's talk about it right now.
Yeah, the barber school and cosmetology school. That was another thing I dove into. Remember, I wasn't even planning that. The young lady came to me and she said, "Hey, I'll open up a barber school for you," and so forth and so on. So she wrote me a handbook that I'm just now 7 years later understanding.
Mm.
That's crazy, right? So I have a handbook, and everything I need is in this handbook, but I don't understand any of it. So you have something, but you have knowledge of something, but you have no understanding of that thing, right? So now I'm learning I need to be accredited to make real money.
Mm.
Okay, I look at all the other cosmetology and barber schools, and these guys are multi-million-dollar companies. How did they get there? They have the same actual licenses that I have. Everything that I need to have, they have. But they also know other things about accreditation. So now you can deal with Pell Grants. Chev is another accreditation, and the Board of Ed is another accreditation. Then the college, community college board is another accreditation. All those things. So the plan now is to take the specialty away from me, get accredited, learn how to do those things, learn the administrative aspect of it, learn what to ask my administrators to do. That's where my success is coming from now. So as I'm building that, it's an actual thing that can be, because once it's up and running, I just have to manage it, you
Yeah.
know. So the school is the barber school. I still get my love, still get to pick up my clippers, but
Right.
now I get to pour that into other folks, and then step away from pouring that and learn the business aspect of it. Because there's the cutting hair, there's the cutting hair, there's the administration.
Yeah.
I've come from the cutting hair, the instruction, and I'm on my way to administration. So that book that you mentioned, the personal MBA, is perfect. It's perfect because I just never had the time to go back to school because once life starts happening, you have to stop everything to go back to school. A buddy of mine taught me about a MOOC. I think I spoke to you about that before. MOOC, where you
Yeah.
can actually take an online course right online in whatever subject that you want to. So I've been doing that, just learning, getting the education aspect of that route and growth for the school that without having to halt everything. You
Okay.
know, yeah.
So now we're in a final segment of the show. I like to call this the rapid fire handyman segment. This is where we quickly reach into your toolbox and you provide the startup dad community with some really useful tools. Are you ready for this segment?
Yep, let's go.
All right. What is your number one time management hack or tool?
Well, I'll be honest with you. You have to delegate.
Mhm.
Delegation is my number one tool for time management. You have to have somebody, a go-to guy, that can pick up where you have to when you have to put down. So delegation, I would think, would be my number one hack for time management.
Nice. What's one personal habit that you believe attributes to your success as a father, husband, and entrepreneur?
Discernment.
Okay.
Discernment, I believe, is the number one that contributes to that because the wife is very patient, but you better realize when the patience is wearing thin. The kids see the freedom when you're not around. You better realize when they're going too far. The business starts failing. You got to realize you need to make that adjustment. So discernment would be that. That's the most. I think gaining the wisdom. I didn't get a chance to speak to you about the books and stuff that really helped me. The book of Proverbs is the most. That book of wisdom is a serious book, and that thing has really helped me. It's helped me to understand and to see and to actually take the time to discern, and be patient and then go with it. You know what I mean? Go with it to be fair to
Hmm.
folks and so forth. So, yeah, discernment would be the greatest tool. Yeah, that's me.
Nice. What's one way you manage your health with everything that you have going on, limited time? How are you managing your health to make sure that you're there for your family?
My son and I play basketball at least 3 times a week.
Okay.
At least 3 times a week. So we go to the gym. We do a 5-minute warm up. We play basketball. Every chance I get, I jump in the pool. I play chess. I love chess. That keeps my mind going, keeps me free. I eat a pretty good diet. I have oatmeal every day. If I can stay away from those M's, like my students call, man, Mr. E, you're always eating M&Ms. So if I can stay away from those M's, I think I'll be a little healthier. But diet and exercise really goes a long way. Yeah.
Nice. What's one book every startup dad should absolutely read?
Well, I'm gonna tell you straight up, Proverbs, the Book of Proverbs. I would say, I'm a Bible believing man, and the Book of Proverbs and the Book of Ecclesiastes is it keeps things in perspective. And when I say perspective, um, there's a lot of opportunity for me to get really rich, but I'm not sure if those are righteous um, routes. And so I have to actually look within myself to see, there's guys that could come around and ask me, hey, look, I need to get my license. I'll give you the money. Yeah, I just don't want to, I don't have time to come in for class. I can take that route.
Yeah.
But once you take that route, you have to continue taking that route.
Right.
So in business, there's all sorts of shadiness that arises. So you have to learn to take the right options. So I think Proverbs. Another book I like is First Things First. First Things First is part of the Stephen Covey collection. It's a very good book. I've read that book maybe about 10 years ago, and I have it sitting right here on my desk. And I think I'm going to pick it up again because that's the time management. That's what the Covey Foundation is all about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I have two new questions that this is the first time I'm asking them, and I'm not sure if this is the right placement for them, but tell me, can you tell us one thing that you would have done differently? If knowing what you know now, what's one thing you would have done differently?
I would have gone to school and finished up in business. I would have learned business administration. If there's anything I would do different is I would team up with smarter folks business wise, not just folks with ideas, but folks with business sense. You
Mm,
know, learn, and it's not too late because I meet these guys every day. They sit in my chair. They sit in my chair, and they're the ones that won't take the risk. The only risk they took was to go to school and get the education, but they never applied it to their own, business. They don't have the business dream Ming like I do.
Right.
So I would cover those relationships and learn how to take advantage of those relationships. That's
Yeah.
the one thing I would do different when it comes to doing the whole business thing. I believe I would have at least got an associate's in business administration. Yeah, because
Yeah.
now I know the value of it.
Yeah, one of the things that I do, and eventually I hope to do with Startup Dad, is to actually start I'm in a couple of mastermind groups that are, individuals, one, that are like-minded, right?
Hmm.
Two, that are going to push you forward and hold you accountable. And then three, who, you want to be in a mastermind group with individuals that are smarter than you are, right?
Yes, sir.
So you want to be in those kind of groups. So yeah, definitely I understand where you're coming with that. The other question I have is, tell me how do you see, so I asked you earlier about fatherhood, and we've talked a lot about entrepreneurship. Where do you see the intersection between the two? And I just came up with this question, and I'm like, Startup Dad is all about fatherhood and entrepreneurship, but I haven't been asking my guests, where do they see the intersection between those two very important things?
Well, the intersection between startup dads and family or fatherhood, to me, is I'm leaving a legacy. These kids have seen their dad literally provide with his bare hands, with his bare hands, and done it righteously. They've seen their dad, and they've heard people testify on his behalf
Right.
of how his life has touched them, how he's motivated their lives. I think that my kids, none of them, the older ones, ever talk about getting a job. They talk about creating a job, creating a means. I think that's the most powerful thing, intersection right there. I think that's my legacy. My son cleans sneakers to make money. My daughter walks dogs to make money. For Christmas, they don't know this yet, Joel, but I'm buying them a vending machine. so they can make their own money and leave me alone.
That's awesome.
That's their own little business. They have to understand the power of every dime. Money is such a crazy thing. If you have the wrong idea about money, I don't see any success. I don't care what job you have and how much education you have. I think you have to understand and value it and put it in perspective. Does it take money to start up a business, and how much money, and what do you consider to be money? You might say $1,000. Man, that ain't no money.
Right.
But people have become millionaires with $1,000, even with $10.
Right.
You have to value those things. It's not to be a Mr. Krabs, like
Right.
I'm accused of being, but you have to have a value, a true value of this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a book right behind me by Chris Gillibo, which is $100 Startup, where he showcases and talks about stories of individuals starting, but roughly around $100. Did I say 100,000? $100.
$100, yeah.
$100, yeah, $100
Oh,
startup.
wow.
Yeah. So I'm very glad that I, decided to throw that question in there, and
Yes,
if
sir.
all the answers are going to be as powerful as yours, I'm definitely keeping that question in there. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was a great answer. And, this was an amazing interview, and your journey is, I'm sure we could talk about it for another hour or so. My final question is a little bit long, but it always produces really powerful answers, and here it is. On the other side of the broadcast is a startup dad who at this point is fired up and ready to go. But as soon as the broadcast is over, he'll put down his mobile device and life is going to happen. And by next week, he'll find himself right back in the day-to-day grind. What would you say to that dad that would inspire him beyond this broadcast?
Wow. What would I say to a dad that's thinking of going into business and is geek right now, but is going to give up tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
I would tell him, if you're happy with where you are, stay there. But if you have a complaint tomorrow and you have the same complaint tomorrow again, the next tomorrow, and the tomorrow after that, and tomorrow after that, I don't think you're really as happy as you think you are. And you're going to have to, You have to bust a move, man. Nike says just do it. You bust a move, you know, and you don't have to bust a big move. You can take a step. You know, one of the things I would inspire folks to do at the school, and I tell my students to do, set up a business card. Go on Vistaprint, spend $5 or $10, and put your business name on a business card, and put a fake website there. You know, bring this thing to life. You know, I think the more you see it, the more you see it, the more you accept it, and the further you go, because you have to walk into something. You can't just walk into the darkness. So bring some light with you. Set up a business plan, just write it down, right? Write the name of your business. You know, my cousin and I spoke yesterday morning actually, and he has this business he wants to start, and he says, I don't know the name. I said, what's your last name? He said, Gayot. I said, how about Gayot Foundations? He said, man, I like that. So I said, well, go on the computer and type in on Vistaprint when they ask you where to put your card, what the name of your business is, put in Gayot Foundation. He said, man, that looks good. Gayot Foundation. I said, put your cell phone number on the bottom. He says, man, cell phone. I said, do you have a logo? He said, no, just put Gayot. That's your logo. That stands alone. It holds weight. It's actually real because you're real. He says, man, I don't have a website. I said, well, you have a Facebook page, don't you? So start with what is free. You know, a lot of folks won't go into business because it costs money and I don't have enough money, this, that, the next thing. So start with what is free. Facebook is free. Vistaprint is very inexpensive. It costs $10 to start a business license. You know, and those things, and oh, well, I'm going to be paying taxes on a business that's not making any money. No, you're not. You just have to claim zero income. But you've actually started the process. You own a business. A business is not a building. A business is a piece of paper. And then that piece of paper is backed by a system that's in the book, which is sometimes a business plan or addition to a business plan. Those things are simple things to do. It does not take a ton of knowledge to do that. You have, what am I going to do? How am I going to do it? Who's going to need it? And who's going to help me do it? That's the business. It's as simple as that. If you take a look at any system that's out there, see, folks look at a business and don't realize there's a system behind that business. That was my fault. I didn't know there was a system behind the business. I just say, oh, they got a building, they sell ice cream. I can get a building and sell ice cream. You know, but there's more to that. There's the marketing aspect. You walk around and you see the name is all over the building. That's branding. Who knew that? I just knew. You see what I'm saying? Yeah, so that's what I would tell somebody. Go ahead and start with the small stuff.
Yeah.
You know, because just like a dollar is made up of 100 pennies, a business is made up of 100 decisions. It's one thing that you do, and a penny is very, very minute. People throw those things out. They go wash their car and they pick up the quarters and let the vacuum up the pennies. Those pennies are valuable, man.
Right. Yeah.
Those pennies are very valuable. Just like every single step to a business is valuable.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know.
The journey of 1,000 miles begin with a single step. Yeah.
Single step. That's right. That's right. Yep.
I love it. I love it. So, Emmanuel, thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your startup dad journey. And I know this is going to be a truly inspiring episode. And I know there are dads out there, startup dads out there, who are going to really connect with this story. So,
thank you.
Please take a moment, share any final words, where we could find you, anything you want to share, and then we'll say goodbye.
All right, Joel. Thank you. I just want to thank you also for even considering me with all these big entrepreneurs that you have had on before. Well, I'm out in Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. The barber school email is edifiedbarberacademy@live.com. You can reach me there. My .com is Edified Barber Academy and Edified Barber Academy School.com. So it's edifiedbarberacademy.com or edifiedbarber cosmetology.com, and you can reach me there. The business is Edified Barbershop, and I'm working on my first startup. My first actual business is actually going to be hair clips. And Joel, I'm finally going to open up my very first business, not my first job, and that's actually a system. And that's scary. That's actually scary because people are not going to be coming there because of Emmanuel's skills. They're coming there because it's a system. and they just want a haircut. This is the scariest business I've ever attempted to create.
Yeah.
Because it's a system that I have to trust and not me. I think that will help a lot of startup dads. Create something outside of yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Emmanuel, thank you for your time, man.
Thank you. Thank you, Joel. I appreciate you.
Hey, startup dads, take the next step right now and download your free guide called Startup.
I'm sorry, I kept you. I gave you the finger and everything.
Free gift. Again.
Yeah, I'll get her out. All right, thank you.
So go download it now, and we'll see you next time.
Mom,
Startup Dad.
you have company.